They said no one hunts snipers at night. Not in those mountains. Not in that cold. Not with 10 enemy sharpshooters watching every ridge like wolves waiting for a heartbeat to slip. But that was before they knew her name. Before they understood what she could do in the dark. By dawn, the seals would swear they saw a ghost move across the hills, silent, merciless, and terrifyingly precise. And every sniper she went after would feel the same chill. The whisper of a woman who hunted them first. Like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for more stories. Her name was Lieutenant Mara Hale, a reconnaissance specialist the military rarely spoke about. Not because she wasn't exceptional, but because the things she accomplished were often wrapped in silence. She wasn't built like the legends they wrote about in recruitment posters. She wasn't loud or boastful or defined by heroic speeches. She moved like a shadow and carried her emotions the same way she carried her rifle, quietly, tightly, and with purpose. But that night, as the SEAL platoon crouched behind a collapsed mud wall, Mara was the only one not breathing fast. She was listening, feeling it, tracing the dark the way some people read a book. The valley around them lay swallowed in moonless black, broken only by the faint glow of burning outposts in the distance. The camera would glide above their position, revealing jagged mountains rising like teeth against the sky, the wind scraping dust across the ground. Every few minutes, another shot cracked from somewhere unseen, always precise. Always deadly. These snipers weren't amateurs. They were patient hunters who knew the terrain better than any map could show, and for hours they had pinned the SEALs down, forcing them into silence, into stillness, into fear. Mara lay flat beside them, cheek pressed against the frozen dirt, hand steady on her rifle. She wasn't looking for muzzle flashes. These men were too skilled for that. She was feeling the rhythm of the mountains, the pattern of shots, the seconds of silence between them. She whispered calculations under her breath, noting each echo, each angle. The SEAL commander, a stern man named Riker, finally leaned toward her, his voice barely above a breath. "We move before sunrise or we're done, but no one can take out 10 snipers in pitch black." Mara exhaled slowly, her breath turning to frost in the air. "I can." He almost said no, almost told her it was suicide. But then he saw something in her eyes, not recklessness, not bravado, but a quiet fire, a conviction born from something deeper than orders or pride. Something personal. Didn't he know that one of those snipers had once taken someone from her, a mentor she never spoke about, a loss she carried like a scar no one could see? She was going out there for the SEALs, but also for herself. The camera would follow her as she stood, tightening the strap of her pack. The mountains loomed above her like a test she had waited years to take. She whispered almost to herself, 10 targets. One night. Then she stepped into the darkness, alone. Behind her, one of the SEALs whispered, "God help those snipers." The moment Mara slipped beyond the collapsed mud wall, the cold wrapped around her like a second uniform. The mountains were merciless at night, the kind of darkness that swallowed sound, sense, and courage. But for Mara, the night was an old ally. She moved low, every step deliberate, her boots brushing over stones softened by dust. The camera would trail behind her, catching the faint shimmer of ice on the ground and the distant flicker of burned-out watchtowers. Above her, the sky was a void. No stars, no moon, just a heavy blanket of black pressing down on the silent valley. She paused at the base of the first ridge, dropping to one knee as the wind shifted. She listened again, the same way some people listened to music. During the day, a sniper positions himself by sight. At night, only instinct guides the perfect shot, and instinct leaves traces for someone like Mara. She slid her glove across the dirt, feeling the temperature, the vibration, the subtle tremor of distant movement. The enemy sniper on this ridge had taken 3 shots in the last hour, each exactly 7 minutes apart. Each aimed at a different angle, a pattern. She looked at her watch. The next shot was close. Lowering herself onto her stomach, she crawled along the slope, inching forward while the wind masked her movements. The camera would shift to her perspective, the rough terrain glowing faintly under her night optic, the ridgeline becoming a jagged silhouette. She spotted the sniper's hideout, a narrow crevice between 2 rocks, the perfect natural blind. The barrel of his rifle extended just a fraction too far, a mistake he would never have made in daylight. Mara waited. 15 seconds. 20. She heard the faint click of a bolt sliding forward. The sniper was preparing his next shot. Mara aimed calmly, her breath steady, her finger tightening on the trigger with a smoothness born from years of discipline. When she fired, the sound didn't echo. The suppressor turned her rifle into little more than a whisper. The enemy sniper slumped without a sound, his rifle slipping from his hands. 1 down, 9 to go. She marked his position mentally and pressed deeper into the mountains. The wind picked up, carrying dust that scraped across her cheeks. It reminded her of a desert training exercise years earlier, where her mentor, the same one she lost, told her darkness doesn't hide things. It reveals who's willing to enter it. She felt the weight of that memory now, guiding her through the cold. As Mara climbed the second ridge, the seals back at the wall listened anxiously through their cums. The channel remained silent. No updates, no signs of struggle. Just Mara's steady breathing. Riker paced behind the wall, checking his watch every few minutes. If she gets even one wrong move out there, he muttered. But Mara didn't deal in wrong moves. She crept along the rocks until she heard it, a sharp intake of breath, close, controlled. The second sniper, she slowly chambered another round, but before she could fire, a pebble dislodged under her boot and skittered down the slope. The sniper turned sharply, weapon swinging toward her direction. For a split second, the night held its breath. The pebble's tiny echo bounced down the ridge, sharp enough to cut through the silence. Mara froze where she lay, her body pressed tight against the cold stone, her heartbeat slowing on command. The sniper above her had sharper instincts than the first. She could hear the way he shifted, the faint rasp of fabric against rock as he rotated his rifle. He wasn't guessing, he was scanning. Searching for the anomaly the mountain never made. Searching for her, the camera would tighten in close on Mara's eyes, steady, unblinking, as she eased her finger off the trigger and drew a shallow breath. She had seconds before he fired, but seconds were all she needed. She slid her left hand into her pouch, feeling for a small, palm-sized stone. Her mentor once told her, sometimes survival is geometry, not gunfire. She glanced sideways, gauging the angle, the distance, the slope. Then, with a soft flick of her wrist, she tossed the stone toward a cluster of rocks 10 meters to her right. It landed with a faint tap. The sniper reacted instantly, swinging his rifle toward the noise. His muzzle flashed, a quick burst of white slicing the darkness. The shot missed her by a meter, but that was all the space she needed. She rolled to her left, anchored her elbow, and fired a single, perfectly timed round. The sniper jerked back, his silhouette collapsing behind the ridge. 2 down. She didn't celebrate. She didn't breathe out with relief. She simply moved, slipping deeper into the mountain's veins before the echo of her shot had finished fading. The wind howled harder now, carrying the metallic scent of snow. Clouds gathered overhead, turning the darkness thicker, more suffocating. But Mara welcomed it. The darker the night, the clearer her path became. Down in the valley, Riker listened to the sudden exchange of shots, his jaw tightening. "That's 2. Has to be 2, one of the SEALs whispered. But Riker didn't respond. He knew Mara wouldn't break radio silence unless she needed help, and the fact she hadn't spoken meant she was still in control, or she was hurt. He couldn't know. The uncertainty gnawed at him, but he forced himself to trust the woman who had volunteered for an impossible mission without hesitation. Mara reached the 3rd ridge just as snow began to fall. Thin flakes drifted through the air, glinting under the faint glow of her optic-like sparks from an invisible fire. She crouched near a cluster of boulders, her breath forming slow clouds that blended with the fog rolling in from the valley. The next sniper would be positioned lower, likely covering the southern approach to the SEAL's position. She scanned the terrain, searching for unnatural shapes, unnatural shadows. Then she saw it, a flicker of movement behind a fallen log. Not a mistake, a test. This sniper was baiting her, pretending to adjust position to lure her into a line of fire. She didn't approach. She didn't rise. She closed her eyes and listened. Beneath the wind, beneath the distant crackle of debris, she heard it, breathing, not in front of her, behind. She whipped around just as a dark figure lunged from the rocks, a blade flashing in his hand, the 3rd sniper attacking her at close range, a place no sniper should ever be. The blade sliced through the darkness like a streak of silver lightning. Mara twisted instinctively, the steel grazing her shoulder instead of her throat. Pain flared hot, but she swallowed it down and threw her weight sideways, rolling across the frozen dirt. The sniper was fast, unnervingly fast, crashing into her again before she could fully rise. His elbow drove into her ribs, knocking the breath from her lungs. Snow scattered under their bodies as they struggled, two shadows locked in a brutal, silent war. The camera would circle them in a tight, shaking orbit, capturing the raw, close-quarters chaos, the scrape of boots, the crunch of gravel, the muffled grunt each time they struck. He fought like a man who'd been trained for this exact moment. His movements were sharp, precise, and merciless. He wasn't here to exchange shots. He'd been waiting for Mara, tracking her movements, predicting her rhythm. To counter-sniper, placed specifically to kill anything that moved in the night, including her. He lunged again, the knife arcing toward her face. Mara caught his wrist with both hands, her muscles straining, her boots digging into the earth. Her breath came out in harsh, fogged bursts as she forced the blade away, inch by inch. The sniper snarled, tightening his grip, trying to overpower her. For a moment, their faces were only inches apart, his eyes cold, hers burning with something far deeper. She felt the mountain wind cut across her back, the taste of iron in her mouth, the weight of every sacrifice that had brought her here. Then she shifted her knee, hard. The sniper gasped, just once. His body recoiled for a split second, and Mara seized that tiny window. She wrenched his wrist sideways, slamming it against a rock until the knife clattered to the ground. The man lunged for it, but she was faster. She grabbed his collar, pulling him toward her, and delivered a sharp, devastating strike with the butt of her rifle. The crack echoed faintly, swallowed by the storm. The sniper's body went limp, collapsing into the snow. 3 down, but now the wind carried something new, whispers of movement on the ridge above her. As she wiped the blood from her lip, she realized the fight wasn't an isolated threat. The third sniper had not been alone. He had been part of a pair, a guardian and a hunter. And if she'd broken their formation, the partner would be searching for him, searching for his missing signal, searching for her. She pressed against the rocks, steadying her breathing. She had lost precious minutes. Her shoulder throbbed where the blade had sliced her. She could feel warmth trickling under her sleeve. Blood, the cold would slow it, but not stop it. She needed to move. Below, the seals saw a sudden flash high in the mountains, a muzzle flare, sharp and distant. Riker took a step forward, gripping his rifle. "That's her ridge," he whispered. Mara crawled to a vantage point, peering over the edge. Through the swirling snow, she saw it. A faint silhouette taking position on the opposite ridge, scanning for his fallen partner. The fourth sniper, and he already had the higher ground. Snow drifted across the ridge like a thin, restless veil, bending with every gust of the mountain wind. Mara pressed her back against a jagged slab of rock, her injured shoulder throbbing with each heartbeat. The cut was deeper than she first thought. Warm blood seeped down her arm before freezing against her sleeve. She flexed her fingers once, testing her grip. Pain pulsed through her nerves like electricity, but she forced it back. She didn't have the luxury of injury. Not with the fourth sniper already adjusting on the higher ridge, preparing to end her nights before she could reach the remaining 6. The camera would shift to a long overhead shot, capturing the stark isolation of her position. One wounded woman crouched against dark stone, surrounded by a vast frozen wilderness. The fourth sniper lay prone across the chasm, camouflaged perfectly against the rocks, his rifle already angled toward the area where he expected her to reappear. He wasn't searching randomly. He was calculating, predicting her movement, anticipating where a wounded soldier would crawl next. Mara slowed her breathing, clearing the fog in her mind. The pain was a distraction she could not afford. She studied the terrain, counting the seconds between wind gusts, tracking how the snow shifted across the ridge. The sniper was using the wind to mask his micro-adjustment. She could hear the faint scrape of his glove against his weapon, barely audible, but enough. He had already honed in on her ridge. She had maybe 30 seconds before he took his first shot. She slid on her belly, inching sideways, moving as if the mountain itself were guiding her. Each shift of her body blended with the gusts of wind, so the sound of her motion disappeared into the storm. The camera would follow close, gliding over the snow as she crawled into a narrow depression between 2 rocks, the only place on the ridge where she would be invisible from his angle. She reached it just in time. A suppressed shot cracked across the valley, and a burst of rock splintered where her head had been seconds earlier. Dust and snow burst into the air. Mara didn't flinch. She didn't panic. She simply pressed deeper into the hollow and closed her eyes, replaying the shot in her mind. The angle, the distance, the timing. She had everything she needed. She unlatched a smoke pellet from her pack, a small cylinder no larger than her thumb, not